In the words of the late great Frank Zappa, I am gross and perverted. I'm obsessed and deranged. I've existed for years, but very little has changed. I'm the tool of the government, and industry too, for I am destined to rule and regulate you. I may be vile and pernicious, but you can't look away. I make you think I'm delicious by the stuff that I say. I'm the best you can get. Have you guessed me yet? I'm the slime oozing out from the internet. You will obey me as I lead you with the garbage that I feed you until the day that we don't need you. Don't call for help. No one will heed you. Your mind is totally controlled. It has been stuffed into my mold, and you will do as you are told until the rights to you are sold. I learned how to do that word for word back in the 70s when I was like 14. That's how old that song is. So I just exchanged internet for TV set, but it's basically the same meaning. Great words. Great man. This is the way the events of the past few years look to me. Obviously, the devil is in the details. Here's the narrative. Over the last 40 years, the billionaires manufactured this enormous voting bloc with a decades-long assault on rationalism. Plenty has been written on this. Everything that I'm going to tell you, you can look it up and you can verify it. So, we had a 40-year-long assault on rationalism itself, which is insane that someone would actually do that for personal gain and wealth, but they did it. They produced this enormous monster. The assault on rationalism started back in the 80s when they got rid of something called equal time in broadcasting. And there were some other changes that took place where that had to do with the ownership of media markets. At one time, you could not own a newspaper and a TV station and a radio station in the same market. You could own one or the other, but not all three, or not two. Now, I don't know. It's everything's up in the air now. I don't even know what they got going on. But we used to have something called equal time in broadcasting. They got rid of it back in the 80s, and that's when you started seeing the wholesale assault on rationalism. They essentially created a monster that was easy to manipulate against its own best interest. And I call it, we'll just call it the mega wasp. The big giant mega wasp. Well, mega wasp ends up being hard to control and is ultimately commandeered by General Flynn and or Vladimir Putin in either or order. General Flynn at one time was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. He had a falling out with Barack Obama about strategic issues. They had a difference of opinion about strategic issues, and I don't think it was necessarily an amicable split. I think he left with a resentment. So at that point, General Flynn wanted to short-circuit any long-term strategic plans that Obama wanted for his successor in the Middle East. Once Barack Obama was gone, he did not want a continuation of Barack Obama's policies, which all boils down to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is pumping too much oil, and this activity erodes the power of Vladimir Putin. Because the Russians, that's where they make their money. They make their money on oil and gas. And when Saudi Arabia deflates the price of oil, it causes the Russians to have problems. They don't like it. And the other people that don't like it are the Texans, the oil Republicans. They don't like that stuff either. So there are a lot of actors here that want a different policy in the Middle East. They essentially want to go hardcore on Saudi Arabia, which is sort of the nexus of the whole thing. So either Vladimir Putin or General Flynn put together a plan to move U.S. foreign policy in such a way as to force the Saudis to pump less oil, to drive the price of oil up. So General Flynn finds a willing ally in Vladimir Putin, or like I said, Vladimir Putin finds a willing ally in General Flynn to overthrow Barack Obama's successor. So what we're looking at is essentially a soft coup against Hillary Clinton. So you may have seen news lately about sock puppets. So they coordinated sock puppets, various elements from U.S. cyber defense and the Army. We're talking about like paid members of the U.S. Armed Forces that are engaged in this activity. Members of the FBI that are engaged in this activity. Anti-cyber warfare elements, people who know how to manipulate. You have to look up J-Trig. It's like a hybridization of psychological warfare and propaganda, and they use these techniques, put together this enormous grand effort between Russian hackers and other actors, even, you know, people that are under the direct control or direct threat of the Russians, like Julian Assange, who would like some help from the Russians to get the hell out of this place that he's been imprisoned at, what is it, the Ecuadorian embassy. He'd like to get the hell out of there, I'm sure, because he's been in there for a number of years now. So I'm sure he'd love to work with the Russians or anybody who will get him out of there. Edward Snowden is in Russia. He's under their control. All they got to say is, hey, you help us out or we're going to fucking do something to your family or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? And he's going to roll. So, I mean, a guy holed up in a foreign country is not a reliable source. You know what I'm saying? I just hate to tell you, I hate to break that to people, but, you know, everybody who's out there who's got their panties in a twist about Edward Snowden and all this kind of stuff, that it's some sort of unfair thing, you know, or Madden, or any of those motherfuckers, you know, goddamn, man, you don't mess with classified material. I'm sorry. You know, I've actually worked in places in recent years that, you know, helped build a building that was part of the fucking Department of Defense. You don't see any of that shit on my fucking blog. I mean, I could have went in there with a video camera and videotaped all kinds of shit. You know what I'm saying? The layout of the building and everything else. You don't see any of that material on here because I care about America. I'm not going to divulge sensitive material that I think might be sensitive. Those fuckers are assholes, man. Fuck those people. If you were going to reveal this big nasty paradigm, the way you do that is you write it up, you hand it to the thing, and you go to the fucking courthouse steps and you turn yourself in and you do the time. Don't fucking run off and you know, it just doesn't look good. You know? There's a way to do this. So, what did we really get from those people anyway? You know what I'm saying? We know that big money controls everything. How is it going to help to elect Donald Trump? If big money controls everything, how's it going to help to elect a billionaire? You know? Oh, well, he's a billionaire. Sheldon Adelson bought Donald Trump the biggest newspaper in Nevada just so that there would be another newspaper to give him an endorsement. So, people are just so full of shit. You're just full of shit. So they coordinated all these sock puppets and even cults, like the Flat Earth Society. Yeah, I see you. Flat Earth, people that they can coordinate and they can get it to do things en masse, that they just give them orders. Hey, look at this, because this guy, I'm going to show you the comment that he left me on one of my videos. It's called Trump's Dog, Hillary Chicken. His handle is MDay. The guy leaves his comment, he says, oh yeah, I love being pulled aside to watch this video that's bullshit. And I'm like, pulled aside? What does that mean? It means there's a bunch of people sitting in a room and somebody pulled them aside and said, hey, what do you think about this one? What do you think about that? How does that look? Do we like that or not? And so he had to sit there and look at it. Like he's maybe part of the military-industrial complex. Like maybe he's a military guy. Like maybe he's a sock puppet. M-Day, you're a sock puppet. And so what they do is they get these people that are involved in cults. I mean, how do cults make money? Cults make money by selling their human resource. People who are weak-minded, easy to be turned into pawns, and they have this pool of pawns that they can be manipulated into doing things, standing on street corners and handing out propaganda literature. Well, in this case, now those people are on the internet. You get a cult where you have a mass of individuals who are brainwashed already. The head of the cult can sell that pool of brainwashed bodies out there to do all kinds of stuff. To sit there on the internet and fucking put a no vote, you know, or leave fuck-ass comments on people's videos and stuff like that. There's that, too. And people who are in the military, you know. Cyber Command. So, yeah, it was a concerted effort to fuck up, you know, to fuck Hillary Clinton out of the presidency. Their job was to produce resentment, hatred, and fear against a presumed hostile takeover of American life by minorities and women. Let me say that again. Their job was to produce resentment, hatred, and fear against a presumed hostile takeover of American life by minorities and women. So, They acted as if they were social justice warriors. They put on the trope of social justice warrior and went out and fucking harassed the shit out of people online and in other ways too. Somebody fucking poisoned my cat. And that's what is that supposed to do? Scare me? So the SJW resentment paradigm, the political correctness thing, had already been in play since the 90s, I would say, maybe even the late 80s. But that was already a thing, and then so they just added on to that. They just used that paradigm that was already in play with the social justice warriors and so forth to maximize the resentment level, to maximize the resentment and hatred. And you can see it on their faces. This lady, you can see her right now. Putting her up right now. You can see this lady. She's just seething with resentment and hatred. It's like, dude, who pissed in your woman? Who pissed in your cornflakes? My God. Well. They did it to her, man. They did this. These guys, General Flynn. That's who, lady, you want to get pissed off at somebody? Get pissed off at General Flynn, because he's the one who did this shit. Straight up. No doubt about it. I'm talking about coordinated persecution. They got people, the SJW trope people would go around and flag people's comments and get people kicked off of their favorite website, and shit like that. And then, every little comment, I know I was on Daily Kos for a while, and I would leave like this put up a fairly innocuous post or innocuous comment. Like I could say, oh, I really love Rachel Maddow. And they'd come along and they'd say, oh, I bet you want to fuck her, don't you? Yeah. And it's like crazy. They just took some shit and fucking turned it into a thing, and you were just like, God damn, I wasn't. Yeah, and what does that do? And you're like, fuck, man, these people suck. These people. Who are these people? And here's the thing, you're on the internet. How the fuck do you know who you're dealing with? You think you're dealing with some black guy being all ugly with you. You don't know who the fuck that is. That could be some fucking corn-fed white dude sitting in a goddamn military trailer and wearing fatigue halfway across the fucking world. You don't know who the fuck you're talking to. You know what I mean? And you're just going to assume that that's a black guy talking to you, or that that's a feminist or woman sitting there talking to you. You don't know who the fuck you're talking to. You have no idea. You don't know what their background is. You don't know anything about them. All you have is their word. And you're going to let somebody manipulate you? The way I look at it, every time I get on the internet, I take whatever I read with a grain of salt. I listen to the logic. This is the thing. You got to listen to the logic of their argument. If there's no logic to their argument, then they're a fucking manipulator. And here it is, this assault on rationalism that's been going on for the last 40 years makes that very difficult. This is something that, Thunderfoot and people like that, they complain about all the time. That you can't get this, you can't penetrate this fucking wall of irrationalism that's been put in place over the last 40 years. It's this my team, your team, jingoistic fucking thing. What do you do with that? How can you do anything with that? It's almost impossible. So the thing about it is that now you have this big monster, this big turd monster that just elected Donald Trump. Ain't no telling what Donald Trump's going to do. Everything he does might be helpful to them and maybe not. This shit they don't want that he's going to make happen. So, that's the beauty of the Donald Trump election, is that nobody's going to be happy. You can't always get what you want, but you might just get what you need. I like Hillary. I'm a Democrat, but hey, it's like I look at it and every kid has to fall off his skateboard or his bicycle and get hurt real good one time. You know what I mean? Break an arm, skinned up, whatever, to realize, hey, I could really hurt myself doing this shit. This is why you don't fucking do shit like this. This is why you don't have an assault on rationalism for personal gain. Because you will create a monster. That's the moral of the story behind Frankenstein. You make the monster to do your bidding, and the monster ends up turning on you and destroying you and the village along with it. Okay? So, we're in the middle of that lesson, and that's really what I'm talking about. We're in the middle of the Frankenstein lesson. We're going to have to see what the Frankenstein monster does. Your motherfuckers are going to have to own this shit and cut the crap. You know what I mean? It's Jesus Christ, people. Yeah, and you've got involvement of people even in the FBI. And these cats, man, they need to be rolled up. The other question is, how much of this is illegal? There's a picture of General Flynn sitting at a table, eating with Vladimir Putin, right next to him, not across the table, not at a neighboring table, at his table, right next to Vladimir Putin. And now this. Is any of this illegal? General Flynn is a paid consultant of the Turkish government, Erdogan, you know? So, could he even be the national security advisor? Is collusion with a foreign power to affect a major U.S. election, is that illegal? And all the sock puppets, and we can find out who they are, I think, pretty easily. All the sock puppets that were involved in this conspiracy to stage a soft coup, how much jail time are we talking about? I mean, you know, treason is punishable by death. Is General Flynn guilty of treason? How many of these people are guilty of treason? What about these FBI guys? You know, Trump land. You know. Mr. President, I know you thought you were going to be able to ride off into the sunset and leave this wonderful legacy behind. It's not going to go down like that. You know, the white supremacists out there are just, they're fucking happy as pigs and shit because they got to humiliate and humble the black president finally. You know, Barack Obama's all proud of his accomplishments and everything, which he should be. And now he gets kicked in the nuts on the way out the fucking door. And my question to Barack Obama is, you going to let these motherfuckers get away with this? Because they are guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. If you let these people get away with staging a soft coup, that will embolden some future motherfucker to stage a harder coup. Do you want to leave that as a legacy? Geez, I bet you wish you could have. Just ride off into the sunset and say, oh well. You know? Which, I mean, maybe you can, because now they're stuck with Donald Trump. You know, I was saying you should give Donald Trump a full pardon for anything that he might have ever done in his life. You know? And let him deal with that. Anyway, that's my rant. My name is R. Crosby Lyles, and this has been News from the Can. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Yeah, if you want to poison me, just put it in my Diet Coke. News from the Can.